And we are back here on North of the Broad. With me is Kevin Phillips. He is with Schiller Hamilton, and we are going to talk about workers' compensation today.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Why are we talking about it today? Because it's important, but why is it important?
Absolutely, it's important. It's one of the things that Schiller and Hamilton focuses on. We're a personal injury law firm, and one of those areas is workers' compensation law, and that's what I practice. Focus the majority of my practice on. I've been doing that for many years. At Schiller and Hamilton. So workers' comp overall is there, and it's one of those things that's really interesting because it's a state by state, very different law.
Okay.
So if you need a workers' comp attorney, you got to make sure that that's someone from South Carolina that specializes in South Carolina law, because it's different from Florida to Georgia to North Carolina. Very different too.
Interesting.
But overall, the purpose of workers' comp and why it's there to provide support for workers. So when someone's on the job site and unfortunately an accident happens and they are now injured, that causes a lot of uncertainty to them.
Of
and
course.
So now all of a sudden it's how can I work? How can I pay my bills?
Right.
What about my medical expenses? And so workers' comp is there to provide that support for an injured employee to where their medical bills are paid, so they're not getting into bankruptcy because of a medical emergency, an unforeseen medical emergency. And then also, if they are ever out of work for a certain amount of time, they can start to receive weekly benefits. So they do have some money coming in, and that money is a portion of what they were making at the time. So it's there to provide support for injured workers, but it's also there to protect employers as well too.
Right.
Because in South Carolina, once you have a workers' comp claim against an employer, you can't file a lawsuit against that employee. Workers' comp is what they call your exclusive remedy. So the point of that is to protect the employers, because we don't want South Carolina, we're pro-business friendly state, and we don't want businesses going out of business because they're getting sued by an accident happening on the job site. So it's there to provide some protections for employers, but then it's also there to provide that support for injured workers when they are unfortunately injured on the job.
Right. So it really is very much twofold. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that it's important to get a South Carolina attorney if you were injured on the job. And I guess it's important to say that because we do have people that maybe come here just for a certain project or something. So, and they might go home, but that's not going to help them.
No, because in South Carolina, if you are hired in South Carolina, if the business that you work for is principal place of employment is South Carolina, or you're injured in South Carolina, that's going to be a South Carolina workers' comp claim. And again, it is important to find a South Carolina attorney that specializes in that.
Yeah. And when does somebody know that they have grounds to file a workers' comp claim?
So essentially,
because it's not going to just be, I stubbed my toe.
Yes.
But
no, absolutely. So it's and everyone's different in that. I mean, an injury to a 70-year-old woman is very different from an injury to a 25-year-old young man. So that's kind of case by case. But the way that the law is written is anytime an injury arises out of the course and scope of your employment. So really, that's kind of once something happens at work, if you feel like you need medical treatment, I guess that would kind of be the bar I would kind of give somebody. If something happens and you say, I need to see a doctor for whatever that is, at that point you need to notify your employer. There is there is a notice requirement with workers' comp. You can't wait, 6 months and then all of a sudden, back in February I got hurt. So you have to notify them, and I would say notify them as soon as possible. Let them get the process started. And something to keep in mind with workers' comp, and I always tell people that when they call us, is that you're not suing your employer. They have workers' comp insurance coverage that they're required to have. And the example I use is just like with you and I driving a car. Once you drive a car, you're required to have car insurance.
Right.
And so if something happened and, this would never happen, but let's say we got in a car wreck and you hit me in my car and it was your fault, I wouldn't be suing you. I would have a claim against your car insurance, whoever you have as a provider.
Right.
So when someone's hurt at work, they're not suing their boss. And I get that a lot because a lot of people, they really like their boss.
I was going to say, they don't want to.
No, I understand.
No bad blood.
Yep, they like their boss and they don't want to upset their employer at all. Again, some people have been there for years and years and they're like family. But unfortunately, they have been injured. Now there is medical bills, there is uncertainty, that something that needs to be taken care of. And that employer has workers' comp coverage. They are required to in South Carolina, just as you and I are required to have car insurance when we drive our cars.
Right. So we pay all those
Exactly.
dues
Pay the premiums every month.
for a reason.
Exactly.
So if how does somebody get to you if they would want to have a conversation with you about that kind of a thing?
Absolutely. So Schiller and Hamilton, we're a statewide law firm. We've got offices in Rock Hill, Lancaster, Charleston and Beaufort here. So we pretty much cover the whole state. But here locally, which is what we're all about here in the Beaufort office, we have an office on Ladies Island. We also have a Bluffton office. But you can reach us at our phone number of 843-379-5005. Our website, Google us, search us, all the same ways you find anything these days.
Exactly. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being
absolutely.
here today, sharing all of that information about workers' comp, because it is a little bit hard to navigate. So
Absolutely.
thanks for clearing that up.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with more, so stay tuned.